Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we're going to be looking back at United's last two home games against Everton and West Ham in the Premier League and FA Cup respectively, and look ahead to their next matches away against West Brom in the Premier League and Real Sociedad, technically away but in Turin as well instead of Spain due to the COVID regulations. With me today, a welcome back Arion and Suraj, and we'll get straight into it and talk about the Premier League match that we were really looking forward to on the back of a 9-0 win against Southampton, thinking the team's in great form, things are going to go really well, and even we were very impressed with the team that was set up, the fact Cavani was starting, Pogba and McTominay in a pivot would be interesting. One thing that I think you and I raised last week, Suraj, was that Lindelof was starting centre-back against Calvert-Lewin, who he has historically struggled against. And he did struggle against him during the game because even though we were 2-0 up, we managed to find ourselves 2-0 down in the second half. And we'll talk about the positives of that. And then the 3-3 at the end and the way we conceded that third goal was shambolic. So let's talk about firstly the defensive issues. We were, like I said, critical of, or rather surprised that Lindelof was in the team. And Maguire came out a lot of stick, and so did Axel Tuanzebe. So who do you think was where would you pinpoint blame? Would you say defensive unit altogether, or would you find someone specifically?
I actually find it very, very hard to, pinpoint blame. I know everyone has their own scapegoat, like everyone has their own scapegoat after the game. But for me to pinpoint, yes, David De Gea should be doing that for the first goal, was it? I think it was the first goal. And again, Tuanzebe, you just can't concede a corner from that side of the pitch because I mentioned it in the previous podcast as well. Everton do so well with that in-swinging ball into the box, and we just shouldn't have. What just bothers me more than anything is that game should have been done at halftime. That was a win. 2-0 up, that's it. Shut down shop. Look for the third maybe, but just don't let them. For me, if anything, it was those two consecutive goals in the second half that really killed us. Because, late on in the game, you do concede a goal. You try really hard to defend, but sometimes you concede the goal. But those two goals that we conceded right after half time, those were just inexcusable. David De Gea should be doing better in there. I think we're really going to regret this one because as soon as Calvert-Lewin scored, I had those 2011-12 flashbacks. The 4-4 draw against Everton. That was also a game that we had won, and then we just gifted it to them. It's more than anything, it's disappointing because again, I find it very hard to blame because if we hadn't conceded that last-minute goal, we'd be praising everyone in the team right now. Would be, this would be a very different conversation. So I think it's just that those 5 minutes after the halftime and the last. I don't know how to even describe what happened at the end over there. Did you see that still? There were 4 consecutive Everton players and just one Lindelof in the middle, and Maguire was marking the goal. You just can't explain that image over there.
No, it was
Maguire was playing everyone.
Yeah,
no,
I mean, it was.
I'm done.
Oh, sorry. It was just surprising, just that you see the positioning of the whole team, and you think, well, that's so questionable. Who's at fault? And they looked at it and said, well, they thought Maguire because he was pushing up and letting everyone play on side. And then, literally in the next game, I saw the West Ham had a free kick in a similar position on the right hand side, and everyone went towards the goal. So it makes me feel more sympathetic to Maguire because, well, if that's what everyone's supposed to be doing, where was everybody at the front post? And it was something that actually we conceded from in the City game where John Stones scored, where Pogba and Rashford failed to track him, and I think it was Diaz, and then he just scored at the near post. So it is something that I have actually looked at and thought maybe is Lindelof at fault because he just lets Calvert-Lewin go free. But there's no need to sort of escape. The fact is that we conceded 3 goals where 2 of them were totally avoidable from even happening. And it does raise questions. And one of the questions that has been raised is over David De Gea. I think personally that was his first real mistake of the season. You could argue the Sheffield United one, but then the referees did say they got that one wrong. So I think probably that is his first bad mistake this season, but he's certainly shown them over the last 3 years since the World Cup. Aaron, do you think that the fact that Henderson played really well against West Ham means that he should start on Sunday?
I mean, the thing for me about Henderson against West Ham was that he did all of the little things really well that De Gea maybe gets criticised for, which is coming out, collecting high balls and just kind of commanding his area. I saw on a few occasions where it was clear that Henderson let his defenders know to let the ball go because he's there. And he was really, his positioning in general seemed like it was much higher up the box than what De Gea's is. And we know that De Gea feels the most comfortable on his line. But the performance on its own, like he didn't really have anything else to do other than that. He didn't, I think he had one shot on target laid on, which he just caught and it kind of slipped out, but there was no danger from it. So it wasn't one of those performances that, United's goal got bombarded and he just did everything perfectly, kept a clean sheet, had 10 saves, and he should start against West Brom. It was like one of those performances that he showed how good he is, but I think it's going to be difficult for Solskjaer to drop the Gea. And especially, I know that Solskjaer hates doing that thing where a position is kind of in question in the media, and dropping De Gea would just add more fuel to the fire, I think. And I just think that he might, with his man management ways, and he is very good at it, I think he might just sit this one out. And, as in Henderson, De Gea will stay in for West Brom, and then Henderson will come back in for the Sociedad game. But I do think that it's a question that needs to be raised, and it's a subject that needs to be talked about, because like you said, that was maybe his biggest mistake of the season, and other ones that he has made here and there haven't been costly. But over the past 2 or 3 years, he has made more mistakes that has cost us than he has actually saved us. In contrary to when United were struggling under Van Gaal and Moyes and Mourinho, and he was actually saving us points. Now it feels like where United are getting better and they need more from the defenders and the goalkeepers to maybe hold out 1-0s or 2-1s. It feels like now the whole back line as a unit, not to just scapegoat De Gea by himself, are the less pressure that is on them during 90 minutes, the more mistakes that they make that cost United points.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that it's someone that we've been almost fully reliant on for the better part of a decade that is now starting to cause problems and raise questions. And it's an experienced player in the dressing room. He was Tottenham captain at some point in his career, and he's I think 6 months away from a testimonial because it's his 10th year here, along with Phil Jones. But let's move on from that. And it's the fact that it's just really upsetting to see how these little things can cause such big problems, and for such a fantastic player, and you have to say world-class goalkeeper. I'd still say yes, still a world-class goalkeeper, because you think about the goalkeepers, even in the last 7 days, Lloris, who's a World Cup winner, had a howler against Everton. Alisson, who's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now, I mean, against Manchester City had an utter nightmare. And, you know, probably the two that are the most consistent in the world right now are Ter Stegen and Oblak, and then it's sort of everyone else is sort of around there, probably Neuer as well. So it's interesting it's not interesting, it's really depressing to see him make that kind of mistake. So you're right, I think it's going to be a big task for Solskjaer to decide. Do you agree with that, Suraj? Do you think that Henderson should be playing against Sociedad and De Gea against West Brom?
No, I think De Gea should be. Wait, you said who should be playing against West Brom? De Gea, right?
So Henderson plays in the Europa League, De Gea in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Because for me, I love David De Gea. I find it very hard to, criticize him, because I completely agree with what both of you have said. This is the first actual mistake he's made in the league this season, at least. So I think I saw a stat from Who Scored the other day that said De Gea has has been directly involved in 8 goals that the opposition has scored since 2017-18 season. So basically, his error has led to a goal. And I did some quick research, and I found out that since the 2017-18 season, we've also conceded 148 goals. So in the league, so De Gea is at fault for 8 out of 148 goals. So if you put it in context, it's actually not been that bad. Now, I mean, obviously you could twist it and put it this way, like maybe those 8 goals cost us points, but I think that's a different argument altogether. I think this season he's been solid, and like Arion said, Henderson kept a clean sheet against West Ham, but he didn't pull off any extraordinary saves or anything. It was all direct routine goalkeeping stuff. West Brom barely tested our goal, I think, apart from the Benrahma header in the end, which again was straight at Henderson. So I think Henderson's not ready to be starting in the Premier League. Yeah, he did well with Sheffield, but I don't know. I haven't seen that extraordinary spark from him this season. I mean, he's been doing well in his current roles. I think he should just stick to that. And De Gea, even though he isn't the same as before, he isn't case where we need to bench him as punishment now. He's made a mistake, we move on from that. Everyone makes a mistake. He just as much as he made a mistake in the 3-1, the 3-3 game against Everton, he made a mistake in one goal. He should still be stopping the other 2 goals.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. And I think the fact is that it's how he responds to this that will determine what happens for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. We'll just see how that works from now, because obviously if he doesn't get back to how he was playing this season, Henderson's waiting in the wings, and Solskjaer's already said he's not very patient. He's really wanting to play every chance he can. So, you know, you've got this competition that's clearly working with Luke Shaw and Alex Telles. It's now improving the right-hand side, our strikers, our midfielders. So hopefully it will improve. Well, we thought it had fully improved the goalkeeping with the competition that Henderson's had, because De Gea's obviously had a better season, but it clearly needs a little bit more work. We'll go on to a few more positives from Everton game just quickly. So firstly, the fullbacks both got an assist in that game, and they were both solid as well. And like I said, the idea that since January, both of them are one of the top 5 creative fullbacks in the Premier League. Arian, do you see that being something that is done with competition, or do you see that being more towards Solskjaer's man management, or a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both, because for Wan-Bissaka, he has no competition. I think it's down to him to put the work in. And I saw for consecutive weeks earlier this month, no, it was last month, that United post those little clips on YouTube of training sessions, like 2-3 minutes. And at the end of a few of them, I saw that strikers are finishing off Wan-Bissaka's crosses from the right-hand side. So they're obviously putting the work in. And I think it's showing, because even though he's gotten a couple of assists in January, which is credit to him, but even when he doesn't get assists, his crosses do look better. I remember at the start when he was getting in open positions, he would cross, but they would rarely ever get much height on them or not go past the first man. Whereas now, knowing that Cavani is usually in there, he's getting height on them and they're going in. Sometimes they're getting cut by the keeper, but it's progress. It's baby steps, because he went from somebody who had pretty much 0 goal contributions when he came from Crystal Palace, and now he has a few goals, a few assists. So it's like step by step, the defensive side of his game is fine, and it's down to him to keep improving, because like we said, he has not really any great competition at the moment, with Williams being a true backup if he gets injured. So, but when it comes to Luke Shaw, though, I do think that last season the emergence of Brandon Williams already showed us that when Shaw has a bit of pressure on him, he elevates. But now that we actually brought in this summer a first-team quality left-back, I think Shaw has gone just to another level. Not only in terms of his fitness, because he looks like he could play every single week, and he just gets rested to manage because he has an injury history, but he just looks like so much more confident. And I remember there was a time where he was really frustrating me, because he would never overlap Rashford or whoever he was playing on the left, and he would always cut inside and try to play ball. Whereas now, it feels like he overlaps like 5 times a game, and he puts in great crosses that he's getting assists from. So I do think there's a just to answer your question, there's a hint of man management about the Wan-Bissaka thing, like kind of sitting down with him and telling him, here, this is where you need to improve, and you now have the personnel to kind of play down that right-hand side with and cross into. With Luke Shaw, I think it's credit to himself where he saw that his position may be under danger, and he was like, okay, well, it's time now. And like you said, I think Luke Shaw, since the start of the year, has the most creation numbers in like 5 categories for fullbacks in the whole league. So credit to him because he's really stepped up a level and brought up his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I do remember points under Mourinho when it was either Blint or it was Young or Darmian playing at left back, and then we might see Shaw in the odd game for rotation. He always looked quite lively, but then was almost immediately swapped back to the players that were usually starting, and then we'd never see a decent run from him until pretty much the 18-19 season, where he started to show a lot of it, and he was one of the few decent players in a pretty awful season. So,
can I add something real quick?
Of course.
I remember vividly one game under Mourinho. I can't remember who it was against.
Was it Everton?
Shaw had a really good game. It might have been Everton. And after the game, the press asked Mourinho about Shaw's good performance. And he was like, well, he had a good game because I was in his ear the whole time he was on my side. And so I was actually playing through his body. And I was like, wow. And now to come from where he is right now, where he just seems like he's such an influential part of this team, it's credit to him and the work that he put in.
Was it the Leicester game?
Was it the Leicester game?
Was it the Leicester game where he scored the winner?
I thought it was the Everton one in 16-17 where he had that shot which Williams handballed and we got that last-minute penalty with Ibra.
I can't remember the opponent. I know I can see the game in my eyes, but I just can't see. I can't remember who it was against. I remember that quote.
Yeah, it could have been either. I remember the one. I know the one you mean. The first game of the 2018-19 season, but
Yeah,
I'm not
that's what
sure.
I meant.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the fact is that it's not just the fact that he's chipping in with assists and the attacking runs, the defensive contribution he's putting in. He's looking really solid, albeit sometimes his defensive positioning can be a little bit of an iffy part of his game, but it's something that he's clearly ironing out as the weeks go on. And I think it's something that comes with confidence and comes with regular game time, which he's getting. And it's also making Telles step up his match because he was pretty good against West Ham, but obviously didn't have enough in the tank to do more than the 90 minutes he'd had. But he was certainly very lively, and we'll go on to that game now. And obviously, it was a frustrating match. West Ham played all 15 of their men behind the ball, I'm pretty sure, and just sat back, tried to counter and failed to counter. So it was essentially attack versus defense, but without any results. Sarge, this is something that we're probably going to experience with West Brom at the weekend. Is this something you'd be worried about, or would you say that bringing in certain players into the side that weren't starting the match would change things dramatically?
Oh, I think at this point, if you rotate the squad, I don't think we should be doing that because underestimating West Brom would probably be one of the worst things we do at this point. Because the Everton game clearly showed that killing the game off at halftime does not mean that you've won. You still need to, go on, and killing the game off in the 78th minute doesn't mean you've won because when McTominay scored, I didn't think we were going to concede one more, to be honest. So West Brom on paper is an easy 3 points, but if you watch the games initially, before the first goal goes in, they're actually quite solid to play against. And I've often noticed after scoring the first goal, they just capitulate. But before the first goal, they're really hard to break down. So I think we just go for our strongest 11, a different squad to what faced West Ham. I think Martial started against West Ham, where we got to get Cavani in there. Shaw's got to come back again. I just get that West Ham team. Yeah. Bailly's got to come back in there. Let Lindelof play against Sociedad, or I'll play Bailly against Sociedad as well. But I think Lindelof Maguire needs to come back. I think Matic goes on the bench, and McTominay for me starts every game this season if he's good to go. For me, he's been one of the best players, and I've been a huge fan of him for a long, long time. I'm just happy to see that, even other people are seeing his true form now. Uh,
Yeah.
Van de Beek, I'd put Van de Beek in against Sociedad, but I'd get Pogba back. No, Pogba's out. I'd get Bruno back into the team. Rashford's there. Martial for me again on the bench. Cavani's going to be playing in there.
So
And
would you play Matic
the
and
right,
McTominay or McTominay and Fred?
now that's a tough one. Remember, Arjun, I showed you this graphic where Fred, he received the ball in and around the penalty area a lot,
Hmm.
but he's passed forward only thrice.
Yeah.
So for me, and that was against West Ham, a team that was just inviting us to uh, pressurize them. So for me, I think that's not done. And
Yeah.
especially if you're playing West Brom, a team that we're supposed to be pressing all the time, like from the first minute to the 90th minute, he just can't be playing the ball backwards that much. Uh, but that said, I still think he should be playing because I think the McTominay Fred partnership is better than the McTominay with Matic partnership or Fred with Matic partnership. But he just needs to be working on his game. So
Well,
I'd still go for
I'll put something to you. Something that actually a lot of people said was Van der Beek did the simple things right by playing forward passes, quick passes, and got the tempo started. So maybe should he play there? Because I think he could get past the West Brom press quite nicely. But would you say he's not quite there yet?
So for me, this is what I noticed in the West Ham game, right? Uh, Van de Beek cannot be playing if, say, a Bruno or Pogba is not in the squad because what Van de Beek was doing constantly against West Ham was he looks at the person with the ball and then he makes that incisive run inside the opposition box, and he's trying to get into those line breaking positions. But every time he did that, I saw who the ball was with, and it was always Fred or Matic, always. That for me completely negated Van de Beek the entire game. So for everyone criticizing Van de Beek, I think we need to see him with Pogba, Bruno, because just imagine Van de Beek's breaking that line and Bruno's pinging one into him, and that puts him in an excellent position to score. So for me, I'd play Van de Beek, but only if Bruno is playing, which means that we can't have one of Fred and McTominay, which could work against West Brom actually. Uh, but then that would mean McTominay playing in a very deep position and just defending all the time, which is again something I don't like to see. So
Yeah.
I'd bench Van de Beek for this one.
Okay. Well, we'll get Aaron. We'll get to your predicted 11 in a bit. But what I want to talk to you about is McTominay, and like you said, Suraj, his defensive. He's not an anchor, and it's something that we've now sort of come to see. He's a box to box. He scores goals. He's pretty much set to get 10 plus goals this season, and all of them have been pretty damn good goals. So it's great to see loads of goals from midfield, and not just from Bruno. So it's great. But then that means that, well, have we got ourselves any kind of proper number six, the Caracas kind of player that can make defenses into attack? And while Matic is probably the only real one, he's not getting any younger and his legs are starting to go, so we can't play him in games where there's going to be lots of runners from midfield. So the question is, who do we get? And our poll has put up three names: Neves, Ndidi, Zachariah. Any of those three for you, Aaron? Or if not, who else would you look at?
I mean, in terms of a lone six in that three that you mentioned, I think I only see Ndidi. I don't think Neves does that because Neves likes to go forward and take shots, and I don't think Zakaria does that well either. To be honest, I think he's more of a McTominay kind of a midfielder than he is a Matic. So I do think that looking at somebody who can play, essentially what we need is somebody who can play a Kante role for Leicester or that league-winning campaign for Chelsea, where everybody, whenever people go forward, he stays and cleans up like the width of the pitch. Which, of course, yeah, you said Matic can't do anymore, and definitely not multiple times a week. And I think somebody who is perfect for that role would be somebody like Ndidi. But then with Ndidi, the questions arise: is his ball playing good enough to be there by himself and can bring the ball forward and progress it? Um,
Plus the price tag from
and
Leicester.
and the price tag from Leicester, which we already know how much they took off us for Harry Maguire, and I think indeed he might even be more expensive, to be honest, because lone sixes are even more rare commodity than ball playing centre backs at the moment. So it's a difficult one. And then before we started recording, you mentioned that maybe somebody from within, which I do see a couple, maybe a James Garner, maybe an Ethan Galbraith, who also I think is a very good ball player and very positionally disciplined. But I think it's too soon, and you can definitely not throw them in. And United kind of need that position covered right now. So, so it's a difficult one. I think that the perfect fit was a Thomas Partey, and Arsenal just got a free run at him, and nobody seemed to even challenge them, which was mind blowing to me, considering he had a pretty low release clause. So that's a difficult one, but I do think that it's one that United need to address this summer because, like you said, with McTominay emerging, and I think we knew that quietly, but people were hoping that he will get molded into that Carrick role. But I do think that he's more of a Pogba than he is a Michael Carrick in terms of how he likes to play and how good he can be in front of goal, as we see as well, with the strike that he has, and he used to be a striker. So I do think that we do need to start looking at that midfield position, and I hope that United are and have somebody in the scouting pool there that they're eyeing up that maybe nobody else is, because I like Fred playing that position, but I do think that Fred's positional discipline is just not there. He likes to venture forward, and he often overcommits into tackles too, which
Yeah.
if you are the lone six and you overcommit into a tackle, well, then you are leaving the whole back four just there saying, save me, basically. So it's a big position. I think it's come to the top of the list in terms of priorities, especially with Matic kind of on the down. But
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting who they have lined up because there isn't that many players right now that would play that role to the level that we need.
No, exactly. And I think the one sort of outstanding candidate is pretty much unpurchasable is Joshua Kimmich, and no one's getting him. So it makes things very difficult. I might try and throw a hidden gem into the mix, Siraj. Yves Bissouma for Brighton. I mean, he essentially plays as the one defensive midfielder with, I think, the likes of Gross. I can't remember the person that scored against Liverpool. I can't remember his name, but there's him as well. And then there's obviously like
Alzate.
Lana. Sorry?
Alzate, if I'm
Yeah,
not wrong.
Alzate. Yeah, you're right. So he basically plays that lone six role. But do you think that it's too big a step up for him?
So Brighton's position, I think, at the moment is a little interesting to see over here because this summer, this January window, they signed Moises Caicedo. I think that's
Mm.
how you pronounce his name. Even United looking for him. So what I want to see with this Brighton side is he come in to potentially be Bissouma's replacement, or are they going to hold down a pivot in midfield together? So if there's a pivot, then that drives Bissouma's price right up. But if he's going to be a replacement for Bissouma, then we might get him, and they might be even open to purchase him. And I'll take him at United. He's an excellent player this season. He's done so well. One of the more underrated players, in fact, this season. And a similar situation is with Dennis Zakaria because this January window, Borussia Mönchengladbach signed a player the exact same caliber and potential as Dennis. I mean, not as good from League Two. I think that's how that's how you pronounce it. League Two of France, basically from Toulouse, and they loaned him back. I think his name is Kone. So even that's interesting to see because I want to see if they're trying to make him into the next Zakaria or they want to play both of them together. Uh, but I think I personally I feel that they've brought him in to ease the load of Zakaria and potentially sell him because they can't keep hold of him for a long time. Uh, but exactly like I said, Zakaria is more of a McTominay threat kind of player and not a Matic kind of player. So in that case, the ideal replacement, if you ask me, is Wilfred Ndidi. It's like a perfect destroyer in midfield. You just play him
Mm.
in there, and that eases so much stress off our center. but the Premier League for them is going to be huge. I wouldn't be surprised if they open the bargaining at 90 million because he is that good. Plus Premier League. Plus, let's be real, Leicester are our direct rivals now. We're fighting. We're both fighting for the same spot in the Premier League, so they're technically our rivals. Uh, how that happens? sorry.
And he's only 25 too.
Sorry?
He's only 25.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's almost a perfect fit if it weren't for the price tag that it's going to be and the fact that, I mean, I'm sure he's quite happy at Leicester right now. I mean, it looks like quite a happy captain there. Everyone seems to be no one seems to be unsettled. Even the players that are slightly frozen out, they seem to be quite happy or moved on quite quietly. I mean, I didn't even know Damari Gray had left until about a week ago. And the likes of Slimani, I think, has also gone. And even Wes Morgan's just about, and he's just happy to be there. So I think it's a really good atmosphere that's working at Leicester, and it's a really tightly run ship. So, it's going to be difficult to prize anyone away. But if anyone can, it's someone with a pulling power like Manchester United. But we'll move on to another question we had from Adam Bateman, a slightly different topic. Obviously, tonight our under-23s are playing, and also the Manchester derby for the United women's side is playing in a really crucial match for the title race in the Premier League. And I think if United win, they go 5 points clear of City, albeit they'll have a game in hand, and really close to Chelsea. Or if they lose, City will leapfrog them and have that game in hand, something that we are very well known to. But all of the teams, actually, the under-18s, the under-23s, the women's side, the senior side, they're all competing for a title race right now. Some are, I think, at top. I think the under-18s are top. The under-23s have started their season, really. I think they're sixth right now. The women's side are obviously second, and the senior side are second as well. So how important is it that everybody in the United group is fighting for the title, that mentality, that kind of position, Arion? It's so crucial for all the success the club's going to have.
Yeah, and I think with the eye on the first team in the men's football, it's huge that both the 18s and the 23s are doing well, because it's instilling that winning mentality, obviously, that the club as a whole, when you really look back at 2-3 years ago, didn't have. The 23s got relegated pretty badly from the Division 1 of under-23s into Division 2, and the 18s weren't really doing that much. If anybody was tuning in, it was to see a 15-year-old Mason Greenwood score goals, but they weren't really competing. So now, to see the kind of change that has happened since Solskjaer came in and Nicky Butt took over as the head of first team development, it's crazy. Like the under-23s team, I was just actually thinking about it while watching their game last week against Blackburn. They went from a team that had a lot of 20, 21-year-olds that really had no future at United, because if you're still playing 23 at 20 or 21, there's a chance that you're probably not making it to the first team. Like Jesse Lingard was an anomaly from kind of that point onwards, when I think he made his debut when he was 22 or 23. But if you're still at 23's level, at like into your 20s, chances are you're probably getting sold. And that kind of takes away, I think, from the motivation for those players as well. Whereas if you look at the side now that beat Blackburn last week, not only did they have no fit centre backs playing and they still won, I think the average age is like 19. Like Amad Diallo is 18, Magebury is 18, Shola Shortire just turned 17, Joe Hugel is 17. It's insane, the potential that's in that team. And of course, they should all be under 18s if you really think about it. So the fact that they're making those strides and playing often against grown men too at the 23s level is massive. And I think just to link that to the women's team, as soon as they were created and they were down a division, you could see the pull the Manchester United badge had in the women's game, because they were getting players in from Liverpool, from City. I think Liverpool's captain, when Alex Greenwood came over, and she became the captain of Man United, but we're not talking about her anymore for obvious reasons. But I think it just showed that what United were about. They went in and they wanted to stamp the winning culture straight away. They got promoted quickly, and they just kept adding. They added World Cup winners this off summer, and now they're in a title race all of a sudden. So I think it's just the club as a whole is in such a much better place than it was even 18 months ago, I think. So it's great to see the progress, and I do often see after some drop points and the frustration because I know people want to win right now. But I do think that from trying that win right now formula with Mourinho and Van Gaal, that brought some trophies, but you could see that there was no real pathway there. Like you couldn't really see much further past their tenures. Like you thought, oh well, if Van Gaal is done in 3 years, then what next? And if Mourinho got another year and a year and a half to see out his contract, you kind of looked at the squad and was like, oh, that's a really old squad he's going to leave behind. Whereas now, it's a painful process at times because you can see what this team is capable of and you can see the trophies are coming. But it's just sometimes the game management in that Everton game was just horrendous. But it's a young team. I think you have to kind of take a step back, cool off, and see what is being built here. And on all fronts, in like 4 different teams and different age groups and even different genders, this team is coming back to winning ways. And I think that's a great thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head that it's going to be frustrating at times. I think probably there's one 30-year-old in the starting 11 regularly. Everyone else is there's 23, 22, but the kind of the older players are 27, 28. And it just shows how much of a difference it's been. Ollie has taken out a lot of the players that either didn't want to be there, were playing for the wrong reasons, or rather for the wrong reasons and not playing for the badge. And he's brought in players that clearly would die for the badge and play for the team and respect this club. And it's something that's massive, and it's something that we're seeing, like you said, in every single category. And I'll talk about the women's side specifically. I mean, Suraj, Casey Stoney's been exceptional as the manager of the women's side, and the fact is that United have got a lot of stick from, I think, specifically the American Women's Team Federation and the captains there, that they should have created the women's side much earlier, and everybody else was doing it way before they were, and so they're quite late to the party. So I mean, how important is it that they kind of show that they mean business even this sort of early in the beginning?
Oh, I think it's huge. I didn't expect the United women's team to start competing on all fronts already so soon. We'd struggled in the lower divisions for a long time and then make our way up. But I think Casey Stoney's done an excellent job, and then when we lost Greenwood, I thought we were going to struggle again, but well, here we are. So I think in general, we've done very well, and as you said, it's great to see that all the United teams mean business. But as I say, sky's the limit. We got to keep pushing ahead. For me, the women's team and the men's team are the most important. For me, the under-23s and the under-18s, if they don't win all the titles, it's fine, because that's development football. That's different. There are different motivation and reasons for playing development football. But the men's team and women's team, they're there to win. So I'm really glad we're competing on all fronts, and I'm not going to make out as if I watch women's team all the time and I follow everything, but I do keep track of the scores, and I'm glad we are where they are. It was disappointing when we lost to Chelsea in January, but I think we can still catch up with them soon, and hopefully the derby is a win.
Absolutely. And no matter what age, no matter what gender, a Manchester derby is a Manchester derby, and so you want to win that game. You want to make a statement, especially because they are third in the table. But we'll talk about the senior team now making a statement. Obviously, they drew their last Premier League game, and they're going to West Brom, who are fighting back from what was a really terrible start to the season, and are looking more competent in getting out of the relegation zone. Of course, a lot of that against the bigger teams is sitting back and countering, but we've seen how they can be dismantled. Obviously, Arsenal ripped them apart, and that was a bit disappointing because it would have been funny for them to lose. But they've given Liverpool problems. They gave Tottenham problems. They certainly gave Chelsea problems. I think they clinched a win in the end. I can't remember when it was, but they did win. Oh no, have they played the second game? Because I knew they drew obviously earlier in the season, but I'm not sure if they played the second match. No. Okay, well then they gave
No.
Chelsea problems, but they obviously showed signs of defensive frailties. So there's you don't really know what's going to come from West Brom, but based on previous histories of not only Sam Allardyce and West Brom, it's going to be tough for United because I mean it's never an easy game. I don't remember any time where West Brom have actually not caused us problems. Even the 5-5 draw, obviously we scored 5, but we conceded 5-2. That was the last time I think it was actually an attacking West Brom side. The rest of it's sit 10 behind the ball, counter if you can, but if not, a point's fine. So, Aaron, we heard Suraj's predicted 11. I mean, how would you go about it? Pretty similar?
I think it's pretty similar. I just wanted to link back to what you asked Suraj earlier really quickly about whether United are maybe right to look past this game or go into it any different. I think the Sheffield game showed that you cannot look past any game in this league, especially again. I think now is the worst time ever to play relegation fighting sides because they're throwing everything at you, the kitchen sink and the whole lot. And it showed that even though Sheffield weren't great in that win against us a couple of weeks ago, they just wanted it more, and it showed, and United got bit for it. So I do think that they're going to go into this one with the strongest 11 and then probably rotate a little bit for the Sociedad game. And I was actually thinking about it before we started recording, and I do think that De Gea will be back in goal. I think the back four will be Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, and Shaw. And I do think that maybe Bailly will then rotate in for the Europa League game. The midfield too was tricky for me because obviously Pogba would be there, but now he isn't, so you have to think of different things. And I did put in Matic and McTominay because of the physical side. That I do expect West Brom to play a lot of long balls, and I just don't know how Fred will find himself with that. Otherwise, I don't really have many worries about Fred, but especially if Lindelof plays, I would like McTominay and Matic to be there just in case to maybe cover in or take some of those duels away from him and let him step back and cover for that. The front three, then, I was thinking Martial and Rashford both played 120 minutes, and I do wonder which one of them. I don't think both of them play because Bruno and Cavani came off the bench, so they're probably going to start. So the two wings for me are the big ones. I think Mason will start again because he came off. So it's between Rashford and Martial for me. And thinking about it, how Ollie would think, I think Rashford will play again because it's the league and it's an important game. And then I do assume Cavani might rotate for the Europa League, so then that would put Martial in up front. So I would go with Marcus, Bruno, and Greenwood in the three, just behind Cavani. I think that's how it's going to look. Even though, personally, I would like to see Rashford sit this one out because of the 120 minutes that he didn't really have to put on his body in that West Ham game that he did. I do understand that there's 4.5 days off, so there was more time for recovery and all that, but I would still rather see him sit this one out, come on if needed, and then start the Sociedad game. But I do think that he will probably start because Solskjaer, he's one of the people that Solskjaer trusts the most.
Yeah, and I think only 3 people this season have got more goal and assist contributions than him. I think it's Fernandes, Kane, and Lewandowski. Or is it in the last 2 years? I'm not sure. But he's been fantastic this season, and he's caused. I mean, even when he's not played brilliantly, he's still come up with the goods in a goal or an assist, like an assist against Everton, and then but then he still misses those chances, which we're a little concerned about. But it's something that comes with time because we all forget he's only 23. He's not. It feels like he should be about 25, 26. It's like the same with so many players. Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's been around for years. Donnarumma's been 21 for 10 years or something. He's one of those players that just is still young and still got loads of time to improve. But you're absolutely right. Sorry, what were you going to say?
The fact that we're frustrated with his finishing and he has 16 goals in all competitions in February is pretty impressive.
It is. It really is. And it just shows maybe we're asking too much as fans. You can only do so much. And he's only human. You can't. It's not FIFA, So, I mean, obviously I think he's one of our most dangerous players. And I think, especially on the left, he just links so well on the left-hand side that it creates more. He could sit back, just on the edge of the box and still find passes, which is something that we didn't really think of before the last season and a half. So it's something that he's added to his game phenomenally. And per team selection, I think I pretty much agree with everything. I think if Bailly's fit, absolutely start him because the physicality of West Brom can cause Lindelof issues. We've seen that against Calvert-Lewin, who is pretty much the same. He'd be a perfect player for West Brom in that sense because he's quick, he can create chances, and he's physical. And actually, I'd take him at United if we could get him, because I think he'd offer some excellent competition, and he's a completely different player to what we have really. So if like maybe in a year and a half, if Cavani decides to retire, that's who I'd pick if we can't get Haaland. So that would be for me. But it's something that West Brom will obviously try and exploit if Lindelof's there. So I think Bailly has to be there. And the only other change is if it's a possibility, Van de Beek to start as an 8, because I think that we're going to need him and Bruno to break down West Brom a little bit more, and his runs can certainly do that. But we'll go for predictions now. Suraj, are you positive or are you worried?
I predicted a win in the Everton game. Stuff. But we can't lose this one. And we just can't. Can't even think of us losing this one. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Please continue.
Oh, perfect. I froze over there for a bit.
Oh, right.
And you guys froze, sorry.
And he froze again.
Oh, he froze. Okay. As he says it.
Don't let me down.
Okay. Aaron, do you want to give your prediction then?
Yeah, I think in a game like this, we've seen, I think Suraj mentioned it earlier, that until they concede the first goal, they look actually quite good. But then once they concede the first one, it feels like a team might score 4 or 5. And we saw that with Arsenal as well when they went out there. And their whole fan base was going crazy because they put 4 past West Brom, even though they just kind of collapsed after they got that first one. So I do think that going out there and wanting to play and putting the pressure on them, because that defense can make mistakes and their midfield isn't fantastic either, I think that's going to be huge. So the intent from the start is going to be important, and getting the goal in the first half, I think, would all but do it. I'm interested in the duel between their striker, the new guy that they brought in. I think Diagne is his name. He's very physical and he gets on the end of a lot of crosses. So that's why I want to see Lindelof and Maguire, or Bailly and Maguire to deal with. But I do think that there's a potential for a clean sheet here with United on it, and I would go for a 3-0 myself.
Wow, okay. An emphatic 3-0 win would certainly make may not make a statement, but it will put us back on course, and it will put pressure on City. I think they've got a really difficult run, including Tottenham, and I think they're playing tomorrow evening. So if they drop points, it's one of those things where everyone will drop points around us, and then it's our turn to pick up points. And historically, we haven't done that. So it'd be massive if we can get not only 3 goals, but 3 points as well. Suraj, are you as positive as Arian, or do you think it was going to be one of the standard West Brom tough games?
I definitely think it'll be tough. It won't be a walk in the park, but I'd go for a 2-1 win for United.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go in the middle here because I think we can keep a clean sheet, because I'm not sure about the striker, and I think he will have to acclimatise to the Premier League. But I think Maguire's got him. I think Bailly can also do a job, and if it's Lindelof, I would be a little bit more concerned. But I think he's hopefully learned from his lesson. Although I've been saying that for a year, but I'll go for a 2-0 win, and hopefully that will be a big statement, and hopefully we can cut the gap, because I think City will drop points against Tottenham, who, even though they looked awful against Everton defensively, I think that was a different game, a totally different scenario really. So we'll see. But then we've got Sociedad, and the Europa League is certainly something we weren't expecting to playing in at the start of the season, but it's something that we should be committed to, I think, because a trophy is a trophy, and a European trophy is something that we don't see that often at United, and it's something that we should be looking to win, really. And with Sociedad, we've got this awful record away in Spain. In fact, against Spanish sides altogether, I don't think we've won a game against the Spanish side since that Celta Vigo win away in 2017. So it's going to be a difficult task, and we know that even a Spanish side that are in bad form can just turn it around and play excellently. And they've got some brilliant players, most notably David Silva, who's given us some much pain down the years. So, Arian, what's the best way, do you think, to get past this side? Is it to play like we did against Leeds, or is it more about patience?
I think it's a bit of both, because I do think that the approach that United had against Leeds was great for a team that will undoubtedly play a similar kind of football, want to keep the ball and want to attack and want to pick United off. And that's my thing that I think about the most, is how United will approach it. Will they go into it like they have tried in recent big games and try to put their foot down and control the game? Or maybe will they adapt to playing against the Spanish side that maybe is a little less physical and less threatening from set pieces, and kind of try to absorb a little bit and hit them on the break? So that's the thing that I was wondering about. I think for me, the best way would be to try and overwhelm them and be physical, because I think we saw even for 75 minutes against Sevilla last season in the Europa League that they did not want to play United's physical game. And once United took their foot off the gas, that's when trouble started coming from both sides. So I do think that the patience is going to have to be in the tackle department and how you press them. But I do think that being kind of more aggressive and trying to come out and press them high early on, just to show them that you're not going to have an easy 70% possession here, would be something that I would try to implement, especially seeing as it has worked in the past. And if not for being just not great in front of goal, Sevilla would have had 4 foot past them last season. So I do think that United kind of have a recipe of how to play here. And we've talked about that they will be missing their star player too, which is going to be big and kind of a little bit of a weight off the shoulders of both the fullbacks. So I would like to see, especially since it's on neutral ground in Turin, that neither team will be kind of used to. I would like to see United go out there and treat it as a chance to have 2 home games in the way, to go out there, put a good performance on, and then maybe rotate even more when they come back. But I would expect quite a few rotations in this one too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact is that they've got to keep the team fresh and ready to, just impress, really. Because, if, say, Martial starts in Turin and Van der Beek doesn't start Premier League and starts midweek, then they have a chance to kind of show that they can force their way into the team, especially with Pogba out. And actually, another thing is that I'm slightly relieved that Pogba's not going to be playing in Turin, because full well he'll say, great to be back in Turin, and everyone's just going to blow up saying, oh, he wants to go back to Juventus and everything. So, blessing in disguise there. But no, you're absolutely right. It's going to be, we can't take it lightly. We've got to take it seriously, and we can't take our foot off the gas, because they will punish you, especially when they have fantastic players. But they are missing a big player. Suraj, they have one of the best defensive records in Spain. And they certainly did while they were top of the table for a good part in November. But is this something that, if we can come away with a strong win, we can make a big statement, certainly throughout Europe, because we were humbled in Leipzig, and so to come back against a top side, you have to say, it would show that some real progress from a really bad start to the really bad end to the European campaign for the Champions League.
Something you said earlier about Pogba saying glad to be back in Turin. He won't tweet anything, but I'm very sure that Raiola will tweet something like, oh, Pogba's back in Juventus, but I won't say anything because some people will get offended and that'll blow up. Anyway, I think if you look at Real Sociedad, I have to look at them in 2 parts. One is their excellent run at the start of the season, and then after that, they were just horrible at one point. I think it was 6 straight draws and then back-to-back losses for a while. And then, for me, that completely shattered their confidence, because after that they went on to draw to Villarreal, and then they drew to Betis. These are games that they would have, I think they already won in the first half of the season. The first half of the season, they were taking on Real Madrid with a lot of confidence and just fearlessly, and they got a result also from that. I think it was a draw. So they were a lot of fun to watch, but then they had a lot of injuries. So I think, as you mentioned, United's record away in Spain, and this isn't technically away, but to a Spanish side is actually quite poor. And you said the last win was against Celta Vigo, but that we were really close to getting knocked out. Our
Oh,
spot was just a whisper away from tapping it in. So again, but here's the thing, right? So here's how I'm looking at it. If Sociedad were a Premier League team, we'd go head on and take them as if they were a Leicester or a Wolves, right? We'd approach the game like this. So why do we treat them like a Chelsea or an Arsenal, Chelsea or a Liverpool when we play a team that are not from England? Uh, so I think we should just treat them like any other opponent and just take them on. I don't know why we have this sudden phobia as soon as we, go abroad to play, because they're also footballers. They have a lot of weaknesses too. And one thing that I have noticed in this Sociedad side from last season actually is that everyone hypes up their striker a lot, Alexander Isak,
mm,
but he doesn't score any goals. I, to be fair to him, he's very young and he's developing too. But he isn't a reliable source of goals for them. So I think marking him out of the game can be done easily on our part, and we just need to take care of Oyarzabal and Porto on either flanks. Uh, I mean, now that I've said this, I'm sure Isaac will go and score two against us in both legs.
we always
But
fight. We always
He
concede
just scored
against.
two the other day.
Did he?
oh, he did.
Yeah.
Well, against
Well, we always
Cadiz.
seem to concede against the
Yeah.
players that have never scored a goal or whatever, and it's just, well, there we are. But you're right. Yeah.
As in they keep calling him a boy wonder, but he just okay. I just checked. He scored three in the last two, but this is his eighth goal in 18 games. So okay, still better than last season. But he's just not a reliable source of goals. He's just 21, so we can mark him out of the game. Our centre back should be more than capable of doing that.
Yeah. I believe we did play against him when he was much younger. I think that I can't remember the game, but I do remember playing against him maybe for a few minutes, and it was he didn't really show much then. But we'll see if he's turned it around then. And obviously we've got, like you said, Januzaj, who's going to try and make an impact against his former club, which we'll see if that happens. But I'll go for, we won't say predicted sides because it's difficult to tell, but I mean, I think we're all expecting maybe 3 or 4 changes from the team against West Brom, but we'll go for predictions. I mean, Suraj, do you think we can make a big statement, keep a clean sheet against the side, or do you think it's going to be cagey?
I'm okay not making a statement because I think we'll leave a lot to the second leg. Second legs, I think, going on ahead at Old Trafford as scheduled.
Yeah.
So let's just get them back to Old Trafford and get a. But it isn't this a little. Okay, I digress. But isn't this a little unfair on them, because if we score over there, it's not technically an away goal, but it is an away goal. Anyways, so I think the first leg I'd be okay even if it was a 1-1 draw, but I'd predict a 2-1 win.
Okay, thank you. Arian, what would you go for? Do you think it's going to be comfortable?
I mean, I hope United batter them because their reverse fixture is just before Chelsea away. So I would love if we could play the under-18s and they have a reverse fixture, but that's obviously not going to happen. I do agree with the point Suraj made, though, that I do think that they're at a level of, I don't even think Leicester, but like a Wolves or a West Ham maybe in current form in the league. So I would hope that we go there. I don't think I did write out my teams beforehand when I was thinking about the predicted 11. I do think that there will be 5 changes in my team at least. So I do think that the likes of Van de Beek will come back in. I think Martial will start up front, and I do think that team is very well capable of putting in a good shift and winning comfortably. And by comfortably, I mean by maybe 2 goals away from home. I do think that this will be a game for Van de Beek to shine in because it's the European stage that he's used to against opposition that I think he will find much easier to find spaces in rather than this cagey 7 at the back West Ham defence, which is obviously very difficult not only to find spaces in but to run in behind him as well. So I do think that whatever team United put out is going to be more than capable of getting a result there, and I do think that they're going to get the win, especially with Sociedad not really looking great recently, although they did just win 4-1. But they are sixth in the league now from a couple of months ago when they were top with a game in hand as well. So I do think that they've dropped off a little bit, and United should be able to put them away. And I would say 3-1 would be my prediction.
Well, yeah, I think this game is perfect for Juan Mata to get on the and give problems, because I think his link up with Van der Beek early in the season in the Cups was fantastic, and I think it's something that if we are going to rest Bruno and Pogba's not available, we do need one of those creative sparks along with him to find him. So I think Mata would be excellent for that kind of game, and I think the fact is I think their fullbacks aren't the most attacking Sociedad, so I don't think Mata will have too much of a problem doing a defensive sort of press. And I think there was a point where he was actually defending more than Dalot against Brighton, so I don't see him having an issue with that. And I think it could be a quite a nice 2-0 win if we play really professionally and take it seriously, and then go into the home tie just needing to just maybe get one goal to seal off the win, and then we can rest a few players for the Chelsea game, which will be massive, because even though they're struggling to create, they're still looking fairly competent at the back as well. So it's going to be an interesting game for United to play. So.
I do wonder, with there now being quite a few days off between the West Ham game and West Brom, and then West Brom to Thursday is going to be 3 days of no football, which is like a Champions League turnaround. I wonder if maybe they'll go into it with a pretty strong team and not actually rotating that much, considering there's Newcastle at home on the weekend as well, and then try to put it away in the first leg.
That's a very good point, actually. I think as well, because Newcastle haven't been playing great football, and they've just lost a lot of goals because Callum Wilson's out for, I think, 8 months, or is it 8 weeks? I'm not sure, but he's definitely out for the game, and so that they've lost a lot of firepower there. So maybe they will decide that, and I think if it was a Wednesday or a Tuesday, that would certainly have had a different impact. So we'd have to see what would have happened for the West Brom game. I think they probably would have rotated far more for that game than the midweek one. So it's a very good point.
You do know that Callum Wilson being injured means Matty Longstaff is coming to Old Trafford, right?
Oh my!
I regret saying anything I just said. God damn it! Oh no. Well, I mean, he's all set up for what, 7 goals or something like that. Jesus. Well,
Vintage Reds is going to have a field day.
Oh dear. Well, I bet they'll come up, those two, and play like Iniesta and Xavi, just going for it. But we won't have to look that far ahead until next week, because that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to both Aaron and Suraj for joining me. We'll hopefully be looking positively into that Newcastle game, and still predicting that Longstaff will score. So I guess nothing will change there. But if you have any question or any topic you'd like for us to discuss for the next one, please comment below on the Twitter polls or on the YouTube live chat. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for